So Brittany, I think a really important question is, how are commodity prices determined? And one of the things that I think I've talked about a lot is the fact that for a number of years now, although it's getting better this year, maybe last year, is our break-even point is above where the price of that grain is selling. So, and what I mean by that is we have our inputs, the cost of our seed, the cost of any of our chemicals, the wear on our equipment, fuel, that kind of stuff. The cost of all of that, you know, if our break-even amount is $4 and the price of a bushel of corn is $3.95, we're not getting what we're putting into it. So how are those prices determined, and how can farmers kind of plan for that?
Yeah, so as we talked about with farmers being price takers, you are at the mercy of the market because you don't get to determine the price. No one cares what each individual farmer's break even is, or the market doesn't care. So you have to be very strategic about your grain marketing plan and knowing where your break even is. So having that number is something that sometimes people don't take the time to know. But that allows you to make more confident forward marketing decisions. But overall, commodity prices are determined, number one, in the futures market. So that market takes into account, it's kind of like a stock market in the fact that it's a wide group of traders from across the country, across the world, that are making trading decisions. And when they're making those decisions to determine the price that the commodity is worth, they're taking into account USDA report data, supply and demand, export sales, ethanol usage, feed usage, all the things that can impact the overall supply and demand, because it is a commoditized product again. So that is what's determining that futures price. And as we mentioned, there's the futures market and the cash market. So the futures price comes into play in the cash market, but then there's also this thing called basis, and that's what ultimately drives your cash price. So the cash price is calculated by futures plus basis, and the cash market takes into account the local supply and demand, the transportation costs to get it from the elevator you deliver to actually the end user or to the export market. So that's where, if the farmer's watching the futures market, that's not necessarily the price that they're able to get. In our area of Nebraska, we often have a negative basis. So if the futures market, for instance, is at $5, we'll typically see our corn basis be around like 20 under, so negative 20 cents. So when we go to sell it at the elevator, we're getting $4.80 instead of what the futures price is posted at. So for that, the grain buyer is actually determining the cash price. But again, part of that is the futures price that the grain buyer does not have any control over. They just control that basis level. So did that answer your question?
That did. And I think going back to that, the cost of production, I know my brother has spreadsheets for each farm, and he's always filling it out and looking at it and everything. And I feel like even though farmers are price takers, I think that the fact that their production has to be obviously below what they're going to get for it, otherwise we're not going to make a profit. And sometimes that number is so close. So I think that it emphasizes how efficient farmers have to be. And maybe the reason that you have such a rise in like precision technology and you know, GPS data, and we're you know, really trying to be precise. And you know, do you think that some of that helps with profitability?
Definitely. So if you even think about like variable rate applications for fertilizer, so it used to be that you would just spread the same amount of fertilizer across every acre. But with variable rate, you should be able to drive your costs down a bit because you're applying fertilizer where it needs to go. So there might be areas that you apply much less, other areas more. But in the end, when you do get more specific, like you said, you do start to impact your bottom line and your break even. And I've seen some incredible farmers break it down, probably like your brother, where it's field by field. They know exactly what their break even is on each piece of ground. And others will just do more of a general break even across all their acres. either way works. But when you do get more specific, that's when prices are really close to your break even, that's when you're going to be really successful, because you know with certainty what is above your break even.
Yeah. And I think that also speaks to the sustainability aspect of it. You know, we don't want to overbuy and overapply fertilizer because it's expensive and time. And if we can get more precise about it, then not only is that helping the bottom line, but it's also obviously more sustainable that way.
Definitely.